Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today I am going to finish wrapping up all the books I read in the month of February. I had a really crazy reading month as far as quantity goes, and I did do a February mid-month wrap-up, so if you haven't seen that, I'll link it down below, but in that one I talked about 6 books. I talked about these 6 books in that video, and today I have 6 more to tell you about. So I'm really glad I did a mid-month wrap-up, but if you want to see these books in particular and you haven't seen it yet, I'll leave it linked down below so you guys can go check that out as well. So today I'm going to tell you the other 6 books that I read in February. Okay, so the first one is The Storyteller by Dave Grohl. I listened to this on audiobook. He narrates it himself. This is his memoir. And I loved every page of this book. It was so good. This book was so good that I just listened to it from my library. I didn't have a copy of it. And as soon as I finished the book, I immediately ordered a copy for myself because I knew I wanted this on my shelves. And I knew that this could easily be a book that I would revisit sometime. I have a lot of book darts in it, if you can see those. I'm going to try to show these when I can. I don't know how well my light is picking them up, but I have a lot of book darts in there. So used a whole lot. There were so many parts of this that were funny and a lot of just kind of one-liners that he used that were just like, ooh, that's a good one. So like I said, this is his memoir. This is his childhood where he grew up, which is actually the town right next to where I live. Like, I leave my town and I drive right into his town, which was really cool because he talked a lot about like local places. His mother was a school teacher growing up and she taught in the same public school system that my kids are in right now. So it was really cool to kind of hear like some local things and things that I knew what he was talking about. And I knew the cities and the towns and the places he was talking about from his childhood. And so that was really cool. You know, it's about him growing up, how he got into music, how he learned how to play the drums, which was really cool. And you know, kind of his decision-making process from there and how he joined some bands and how he kind of really got into the music scene and got noticed. And obviously it goes into Nirvana because he was the drummer for Nirvana. Then obviously going on to find the Foo Fighters, which is what he's most known for. I loved it. There were just crazy, crazy stories from the road. That just, whoa. The parts about Kurt Cobain were definitely sad, because he doesn't talk about Kurt Cobain a whole lot. He doesn't like to talk about it because that was obviously a very big life-changing moment for him. And he still struggles with his feelings about Kurt, who committed suicide in the 90s. So he still struggles with that to this day. And like, he still to this day does not like talking about Kurt, but he did a little bit in here. And, you know, those were definitely sad. I remember when Kurt Cobain died. I remember that happening. I was a Nirvana fan. Yeah, so that part was definitely sad. There were also a lot of parts in here that just made me laugh. And, you know, the way he reacts to things were really funny. He talks about people he has met along the way, heroes of his that he was able to come into contact with, people he has made friends with that to him, he's still in awe that he even gets to share the same era with these people, let alone be friends with them. And that was probably one of my biggest things that I loved about this book, is that he has never once taken for granted his opportunities and the people that he's come across and the people he's been able to get inspiration from. And, you know, he was constantly through this book going, how is this my life? I'm just a kid from Springfield, Virginia. You know, like, that's just, how have I been so lucky to be able to live the life that I live and to meet the people that I'm meeting? And, you know, he never once has taken it for granted, has never not appreciated things that have come his way. And the opportunities he's been handed sometimes. So that's what I loved about this as well. He definitely doesn't come across as some, you know, entitled rock star, definitely. So that's what I loved about this too. If you have the chance to listen to the audiobook, I highly, highly recommend it, because he is just wonderful to listen to. And yeah, I literally immediately bought the book, and I'm really glad I did, because there's pictures in here as well, which are great. And he is a wonderful storyteller. So this one was definitely 5 stars, will probably be on my favorites of the year. And totally obviously keeping this one. Okay, the next one that I read was a book that was on my Kindle. I got this from NetGalley, and it was also one of my most anticipated books for the year, and that is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca. And this one follows a writing duo who wrote a couple of best-selling books, and then they had a falling out. They were never romantically involved, but something happened that completely severed their friendship, and they went their separate ways, worked on their own careers, and were never going to come back together to write anymore together. However, they both find themselves in situations that they realized coming back together and doing one more book, which is technically still on their contract to do, would be beneficial to both of them on a professional level. So they decide to swallow their pride and come back together to write one more book and see if that can kind of help their life situations. And you see that happening. Okay. I love the premise of that book, and I was so excited going into it because, this is about a writing duo, and it's a romance written by a writing duo who are actually married. So I'm just thinking like, this is going to be so cool and this is going to be great. And they know all the ins and outs of working together. And I will say that like the writing process for this couple was definitely a big part of it. And, kind of a little bit of insider information on how the editing works and how the logistics of going into publishing a book works. So that definitely is there. But everything else wasn't, you guys. I was really, really disappointed in this book because it was going well for a while. I think I was probably 50-60% into it, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, I'm enjoying this. This is good. But I started to get to a point where I was like, okay, is something going to happen? Because right now we're still just writing this book. And we're getting it's a little bit of a dual timeline. So you're getting most of the present, but then you're getting little snippets of the past, and you're kind of leading up to what happened to cause them to sever their friendship. So you are getting that. But I felt like I need something to happen. This is supposed to be a romance, and there's no romance happening at all. And I really just kind of was thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to need some action here, like legitimately, because I was starting to get bored. So some action does start happening, and the action was good. Like there is a really good steamy scene in here. So that was good. I'll give it that. But for a majority of the book, it was just okay. And I was hoping that maybe the ending would pick it up for me, or, once we hit the good steamy scenes, it would just kind of take off from there, but it really didn't. The reason that they severed their friendship, I thought was so stupid. I really did. I did not like the reason that they parted ways. I just kind of read that and I went, really? I didn't like it. I thought it was childish and childish on the characters' parts. And I didn't get it. I was like, why would that be a reason that you would completely walk away from somebody who's really important in your life? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I didn't really like the ending either at all. I ended up rolling my eyes a whole lot, especially towards the end. And I'm wondering if part of this was that this writing duo has written in the YA genre. This is their first adult book from what I'm understanding. And I'm wondering if maybe that had something to do with it, because it felt the reasonings for them breaking up and doing all these things felt very juvenile. And I'm wondering if that's why. It didn't feel like an adult problem. Like adults wouldn't have this problem. You know what I mean? So yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way. I did not like it at all. I ended up giving it 2 stars. I wanted to throw it across the room at the end because I just felt like I got gypped. I was like, joke's on you. I felt like I was being punked a little bit. That was very disappointing because that was one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. I was so excited for it. And it really it was not good for me. So, yeah, I'm don't have a physical copy, don't plan on getting one. So, yep. Okay, so the next one that I picked up because there was a read along happening on Goodreads, and I thought I would just go ahead and join in. And so I did pick up the book. However, I didn't follow along with the Goodreads group. I just have found that I don't like reading along on Goodreads at all. I don't know why. I never check in on the topics and the discussions. I always get lost in the threads, and this one in particular was not broken down by chapters. So it was like I got spoiled for one chapter, right in the beginning. And I was like, oh, great. Because I didn't realize they were going into the next chapter. So it was just kind of like, I don't know. And I have kind of learned over the years that Goodreads is not really a good place for me to do like read alongs and stuff. I'm just going to track my books and just leave it at that. So I'm not going to join any more groups or do anything on there. I don't know. I think it's me, but I'm just not into it. So anyway, all that to say, this came up as a read along. Someone invited me, and so I went ahead and jumped in. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll read that. Like it's on my shelves. I've had it for a long time, so I'll give it a read. And that is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Now, this is definitely considered a classic. It was written in 1954, and this follows a group of boys who crash land on an island, like a deserted island, and they are all by themselves. They are young boys. They're like 12 years and younger. And you follow them basically just surviving on this island here. There's a lot of alpha maleness happening. There's a lot of competition for who's going to be the leader because they need a leader. There's a lot of younger kids as well. And so you kind of see them establish some dominance and kind of watch what they do to survive. Okay, I've read this one physically, and I didn't like this one either, you guys. I really didn't. I think my expectations were really high for this because all I've heard about this book is that it's brutal and it's violent and it's bloody, but it's kids and blah, 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 and it's dark and all these things. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in. I didn't get that. I guess I was expecting more brutality from it. And I was reading and I was like this far in, like I'm this far away from the end and I'm like, is something going to happen? It was one of those things again where I was like, nothing's happening. Like all we're doing is calling meetings with this conch shell and like, okay. And these two boys are fighting for dominance over the whole group and like, okay. I don't know. I think I was expecting more, and maybe that's my modern expectation because when this was written in 1954, I'm sure this was shocking and brutal at the time because, it does get bloody. People die and, all that stuff happens for sure. So I think maybe back then this was more shocking than it would be today. So I guess my expectations were a little bit too high for that. So I think that was a little bit of a letdown. I also had a little bit of trouble following the dialogue in here because it was so much back and forth, but the way that it's written, it was like, it would be, the first line would be who was talking, like it would be, the dialogue and then so-and-so said. And then it's like 20 lines of dialogue back and forth with only quotation marks, not any reminder of who's saying what. So I tended to get lost a little bit. I'm like, wait, who's saying this and who's saying that part and all that. So I struggled a little bit with that. There were a couple times where I had to go back and start from the beginning and be like, okay, this is this person. And I had to like do that, to remember who was saying what, the back and forth. So that was a little bit confusing. So I struggled with that a little bit. And yeah, I don't know. I really wanted more from this. I wanted it to be darker than it was. I kept hearing, like these are great metaphors for life. I don't pick up on that kind of stuff. So like, I don't know. It was disappointing, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to keep this on my shelves because I'm never going to reread it. I didn't really enjoy it. And I like the idea of it. And I love the cover. God, I love this cover. So it kind of kills me a little bit to get rid of it, but I'm never going to read it again. So there's no point in keeping it. But yeah, 2 stars. Next one I read was a nonfiction, and that is Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. This is the memoir from her about her childhood and growing up and what her family life was like. And I got this from Book of the Month. So I read one of my Book of the Month books, which was good. I just picked this up on a whim. I just kind of wanted to pick something short and quick and, something from my book of the month shelf because it was an area I wanted to focus a little bit more on. And so I grabbed this one. It's pretty short. And okay, so this one was interesting because, like I said, it's her memoir. And the synopsis, I think, is a little bit misleading to the point where, it's supposed to be about Ashley and growing up, and her father is incarcerated, and from what I understood from the synopsis, it seemed like it'd be more about her relationship with her father and him being incarcerated and how that affected her and her family and all that stuff. And it kind of does, but it's more about her mother, much more about her mother, because she lived with her mother. And her dad is in here, and you see her interact with him, but not very much because he's incarcerated. She can't see him very much. She goes for a long period of time without even seeing him. So it's much more about her mom than her dad. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. I was expecting more about her dad, but her mother was also abusive. So there's that. And then you see her relationship to men from a young age and things that happen to her that affect her relationship with men and friendships and things like that. So you follow her basically as a young child all the way up through college for the most part. I'm going to say this was fine. I gave it 3 stars. My only thing was I didn't really connect to Ashley very much because I don't know who she is. I think if you already know Ashley, she's a writer. This is her debut book, but she has been published in magazines and blogs and all that kind of stuff too. So if you're already familiar with her writing and maybe know a little bit about her, you'd probably connect to her a little bit more. But I didn't feel a connection at all because I have no idea who she is. So to me, it just felt like a stranger was telling me her life story. I'm like, okay, cool, got it. She does go through some stuff. So there's a lot of content warnings in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and list some of those for you. But there is definitely child abuse in here. There is rape. There is some, I want to say molestation. There's not detailed molestation, but that's definitely a topic that is discussed in here that she talks about as far as other people experiencing around her. So it is discussed, but it's not graphic detail or anything. But that's definitely in here. And there was a lot. Be kind of warned going into that. But yeah, I just felt like it was fine and I gave it 3 stars. I'm not going to hang on to it, but I read it and there we go. Okay, this next one I picked up on a whim again because it was getting towards the end of the month and I knew I was going to finish the last one I'm going to talk about. The next one I'm going to talk about is what I finished last, so I'm saving it for last. But I knew I was going to finish that one. And then I was like, you know what? We have a couple more days. Wonder if I could just squeeze in one more. I was just really in the mood to read. So I was like, I'm just going to go to my shelves. I'm going to pick something short that I think I can get through quickly and see if I can read it before the end of the month. And I sure did. So I picked up Perfect Days. This is by Rafael Montes. This one is actually translated. This was a Brazilian book and a Brazilian author. And let me give you who the translator was. Alison Entricken is the translator for this one. So, all right. This one I picked up a long time ago because this was compared to You by Caroline Kepnes. And the reason it was compared to that book is because this follows a stalker who is stalking a woman and you're watching that whole process happen. So I'm going to say that's where the similarities stop. I did not go into this expecting it to be as good as You is because that's one of my favorite books of all time. And so I wasn't expecting this to be that. So I think that helped. Maybe if I had gone into this expecting it to be just like You, there's no way I would have enjoyed it. But don't go into this expecting that one. But we do follow Tio, who is a single adult man living with his mother. And he has an encounter with a woman. Her name is Clarice, and they meet at this barbecue. They have a really interesting encounter, and he immediately becomes obsessed with her and decides that they need to be together. He's in love with her, just immediate, right? So he starts to try to insert himself, try to make like a little coincidence meeting all the time. He finds out a whole lot about her really quickly. The difference in this one, because that's how You starts out as well, the difference here is that Clarice wants nothing to do with him. Like, she's not having it. She has her own life. She has a boyfriend. She has friends. Like, she's living her own life. She doesn't want to be even friends with this guy. You see her kind of voice that and how he handles that not very well. And he ends up kidnapping her. And you see that happen. So she is being held against her will with this guy. It just goes from there. So that's all I'm going to say about the synopsis. But I will say that I enjoyed this book. It's definitely fast-paced. There were some scenes in here that I just went, okay. I had to put it down at one point. And I was reading in bed. My husband was next to me. And I was making this face like, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I don't think I am. I think I need to put this down for a second. That's a really intense scene. Tio is also a medical student, so that is something that helps him throughout his excursions, if you will, because he has some medical knowledge about the human body. So I'm going to say that. And yeah, and you see them, just what's happening between these two. And it gets crazy. It really, really does. I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. I read it really quickly, like I said. However, I did not like the ending, like not even a little bit. I think if it had had a different ending, I might have even given it 5 stars, but it was a 4 because the ending was just like, really, we had such a great book this whole time, and then you're going to end it like that. I didn't like the ending at all. So there's that. But I did give it a 4 star, and I do think it's worth the read, definitely. There has been some talk about, because I looked up some Goodreads reviews on this one, because it doesn't have the highest rating. And some people were saying like they had trouble with the dialogue. It was like choppy, or the back and forth was a little bit strange. But this is a translated work. So I think I just think that's a cultural thing. Like people probably do talk like this to each other in Brazil. We don't talk to each other like that necessarily in America, but that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. So to me, the dialogue didn't really bother me because I was reminding myself like, oh, that's kind of a weird statement, but this is not America. So, I'm trying to get out of that mind frame as well. And yeah, that kind of helped me through that. But so I do recommend this book. I just didn't like the ending. So that's the only thing. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed this, and I definitely think it's worth the read. So yeah, I'm going to not hang on to this one for the long haul, to be honest, because I know I'm never going to reread it, but it is really good, and I do recommend this one. Okay, and the last book that I read in the month of February that I finished is easily my favorite book of the year so far. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I might have used all caps in my review of this about how much I love this book. Oh my gosh. Again, I used a few book darts. Oh gosh, I can't even tell if they're popping up. I think they might be. A lot of book darts in here. Now, I listened to this on audiobook. The audiobook narrator was Ray Porter. I love him. I will follow him anywhere. This is the first book I listened to by him, and I want to read more that he reads because, oh my gosh, fantastic. This is another book of the month book. And this is one I've just been wanting to read it for a while because I've heard such great things about it. Such great things. And I loved The Martian, which is definitely, his big hit. I loved that book. That's one of my all-time favorite books. I might have liked this one more. I'm not going to lie. Like, I might have liked this one more than The Martian. I just could not get enough of it. Okay, brief synopsis. I'm making it so brief and so vague because you have to go into this one not expecting what you're going to get because you can't. So we follow a man named Ryland Grace, and he is part of this crew that is going on this mission to basically save humanity, if you will. The sun is dying. It's losing, the sun is like, that's how they described it. The sun is literally dying, and like we can't live without the sun, basically. So he is part of this crew in this mission. Something happens on their exploration, and he wakes up, and he's the only person alive in the crew. And he wakes up not knowing where he is, what he's doing, what his name is, who he is. He wakes up with amnesia, basically, and doesn't know what's going on. And he is by himself on this spaceship. What is going on? That's all I'm going to tell you. Because that's all I want you to know. You guys, I can't, it's so good. This humor, like that's what most of these things are, is just points that made me laugh. And also some like good, sentimental, sad, whatever parts. But like most of these are laughing, because I was just laughing out loud consistently throughout this entire 400+ page book. And the humor is just on point, 100%. And you're going back and forth a little bit. So you're mostly like, here's what's happening right now and how he's dealing with all this stuff. And then you're also seeing him being part of the process and, finding out what actually is happening with the sun and meeting the crew and them getting ready to go on this mission together. So you're getting both of those, which I really like, the back and forth like that. And just you guys. And there's a character in here that I am completely and utterly in love with. And if you've read it, you know who I'm talking about. And I just, you guys, please read this book. Even if you don't like science fiction, you don't have to. There is a lot of science in here. It went over my head. I didn't care. I did not care one bit. It did not take away from my enjoyment of the book. And if you have Audible, it is an Audible exclusive, which is the only thing that I think is a bummer. But if you have Audible, please listen to it, because it is so worth it. I will listen to this book again in a heartbeat. Like, no problem. It is so good. And read it, please. Obviously 5 stars, obviously keeping it. Like, can you see how many book darts? I really can't tell if you can see. I really hope you can, because, oh my gosh, like I use so many. It's insane. Okay, those are the last 6 books that I read in the month of February. I read 12 books, you guys, in the month of February. I don't know how that happened. I was just on a roll. I just kept going and I was enjoying myself. So that's really good. Even though I had a couple of books this month that I didn't really enjoy, but luckily I didn't get into a slump or anything. I was getting a little bit concerned that I was going to get into a slump, but I didn't. So the ones that I really loved really made up for it. And yeah, it was a great, great reading month, especially quantity wise for me. So I'm happy about that. Shortest month of the year and one of my best reading months, probably. That's going to be coming up. But all right, let me know if you have read any of these books. Let me know if you're going to be picking any of them up after hearing me talk about it. Let me know if there's any that you're going to skip after hearing me talk about it. Let me know that too. And yeah, let me know how your February went. I would love to know. And I will see you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day. Bye.